Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Progress America Unfiltered. We have a little bit of a mid March Madness update for you today. And speaking of madness, we will be covering what is happening in Texas with this bill limiting the rights of trans people, as well as them, of course, attacking abortion rights. It's almost like, what's new? Here's this continued madness that we're seeing unfolding in Texas from the government leaders in Texas that are impacting all of the good people over there. So, Tyler, tell me a little bit about what is going on in Texas.
I can do that. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Texas Republicans are at it again, shockingly. So, Texas Republican lawmaker from the Houston area just proposed a House bill, HB 4378 to get technical, which would allow everyday people to sue anybody who hosts or performs drag when a child is in attendance. So, a lot of advocates are rightly calling this a bounty hunter bill again. This is like a drag bounty hunter bill, and we're even calling it a trans bounty hunter bill. And we'll talk about why. But this bill basically prohibits anybody from doing drag in front of a child. And drag is defined very, very loosely, and that is intentional. So, drag is basically just performing in any way representative of a gender that's not the one that you were assigned at birth. So that's extremely loose definitions. And the reason why this could be considered a trans bill is because, the definition of performing becomes very loose when we're thinking about these things. Is karaoke performing? Is, talking in front of an audience performing? Is giving a presentation at school performing? So it's a little bit murky, and it's something that a lot of activists are rightly sounding the alarms about. And this bill basically has its legs by using the controversial tactics used in Texas's pre-Dobbs 2021 bill SB 8, which is their abortion banning bill, which similarly gives everyday citizens, the right to sue each other for, facilitating abortions or having had abortions done. So, needless to say, this is pretty terrifying.
So, Tyler, I'm wondering how this bill is going to affect people in Texas. So, what do you think this means for like the performance art scene? What do you think this means for like just people living their everyday life in Texas? Because we think about like the drag community, like an awesome crowd of people, of course. But is that a small group of people? Do you think this is only going to affect a small group of people? Do you see this on a wider scale?
Absolutely. I think that this bill is definitely going to have wider spread impacts. We see it in the vague language of the bill, in what is considered drag and what is considered performance. And I also think that's very intentional. And one thing that's important to note that I don't want to gloss over is that civil action in this bill can be brought up for up to 10 years after the offending event. So that means anyone's memory of something that happened 10 years ago can be used in this civil case under this bill. And Texas is effectively putting a $5,000 bounty on trans people, on gender nonconforming people, on drag queens, on anybody who does not fit the stereotypical white heteronormative cisgendered presentation that they were given at birth. And it's pretty harrowing to think about. And the fact that this bill is stemming from the abortion bill that Texas already passed, we're seeing the implications in the way that Texas Republican lawmakers are expanding their use of the law to continue to infringe on people's rights. So we're going to see more bounty hunter bills. Today, it's abortion rights and drag performers. Next, who knows what it'll be against, but it's really terrifying in my opinion. So this does have widespread impacts.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. And Michael, I'm going to pass it over to you too. And I want to bring you into this conversation. And just so, as kind of a digital activist, if you will, what do you think that this means from like the people in Texas's government that are really kind of putting these really extreme things forward? Like we've heard a lot about how Texas is transforming into a more purple, hopefully a more blue state going forward. But what do you think these bills symbolize? Is it like the last flames of I wouldn't even say shooting star, like a falling asteroid, if you will?
Well, I think what these bills are doing is trying to cling on to the last vestiges of power as a way of preserving power. Like what the bounty bill, the whole approach is about is pitting neighbors against neighbors and creating a culture of surveillance and fear. right? Like, I think a really important thing that people don't necessarily understand about how the bounty bills work is that uh, it is taking your neighbor's money, right? Like in the abortion case that was just brought, like they are suing for $10,000 each. Uh, the woman who got the abortion, the neighbor who helped her access it, the doctor who prescribed the bill, right? And so it's $30,000 out of each of their pockets, or $10,000 out of each of their pockets into the pocket of their neighbor. So it incentivizes through large amounts of money spying on and snitching on your neighbor. And so in that more closed society, that then it gets harder to step outside of the norm and to advocate outside of the norm. And the whole bounty process was devised as a way to get around constitutional protections. Originally, the constitutional protection around Roe v. Wade, now they're bringing it over to the First Amendment, just like abortion advocates predicted. So it's scary stuff.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Very, very scary.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so Tyler, is there anything else you want us to know about this really important issue that's impacting Texas? Do you think this is something that we're going to see pushed throughout the nation further than Texas?
Absolutely. And I quickly want to touch on what Michael brought up about the abortion bounty bill, which we are now seeing a case from. That obviously went into effect pre the Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade overturning in their Dobbs decision. But now we're really seeing the extent of the law. A Texas man filed a wrongful death lawsuit against 3 of his ex-wife's friends for helping his then wife obtain mifepristone pills to induce an abortion. And I think he's actually seeking like $1 million from each woman, a truly insane amount of money. And at a time when medical abortion is still in the hot seat, and in Texas specifically, where we're waiting for the ruling from a judge in Texas to tell us, if mifepristone can still be sold legally. The fact that this case is happening now and we're seeing the extent of the abortion bounty hunting bill is really scary. And I wanted to take a second. NPR did some really good reporting on this, which we can leave in the show notes at the bottom of this video. But one thing that came to fruition, the husband was reading the wife's text, which is, I guess, how he found out about the abortion. And, in the text messages, the women are saying, like, we can take, her friends are telling her, you can take the day off, you can do it at my place. The wife was saying, your help means so much to me. I feel so lucky to have y'all. And similar to what Michael was saying, this really does feel so intrusive, so invasive. You're being so heavily surveilled, and something that is already terrifying and dangerous and life-changing, as ending a pregnancy for whatever reason is already difficult enough, and now adding on to the fact that you can be, or your friends can be, sued for millions for helping you is just so despicable. And it's disgusting, but our Supreme Court has made it clear that they're going to allow this to continue. So I think what's important now moving forward is similar to what Michael was saying. We have to be conscious and reject this turning against your neighbor, using your neighbor as a cash cow kind of vehicle, which is what Republicans are relying on in order for these bills to work. Ooh, I dropped my phone. In order for these bills to work, they need us to fear each other, to hate each other, to not understand each other, to not want to help each other. And that's how this kind of hate and this kind of destructive legislation is allowed to continue. And so we have to just say no and be compassionate. And, if nobody sues, then these bills mean nothing. And that's a lot to ask, but, I think that's all we can do moving forward.
Absolutely. And I think also just the Republican Party, we hear them wanting to limit government's reach into the lives of the American people. We hear that as like their little talking point that they love to spew on time and time again. I, honest to God, do not know how much more intrusive they could be into the lives of the American people than what they are doing in Texas, what they are trying to do throughout the nation. So unless there's some really heavy intervention here, like this kind of surveillance from one another at the kind of the whims of the government is just going to be the new normal under Republican leadership. And we have to absolutely push back against it. And I'm so excited that you covered this issue, Tyler. It's a really important one. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I think in addition to the madness that we are seeing in Texas, that brings up March Madness. And we have our lovely producer, Michael Phelan, as I said, joining us today to talk to us about our March Madness bracket. Phelan, will you please unpack the March Madness for us right now?
Sure. So over on our socials and some friend socials, we're running through a bracket for the favorite fictional presidents. As we've covered in previous weeks, we got four quadrants: evil presidents, presidents in disasters, uh, presidents whose phones just fell over, uh, funny presidents, and presidents who really embody the spirit of hopium. Uh, and so we got through the first round this week, uh, and we're going to get started on the second round. So in the evil bracket, Charles Logan from 24 defeated George W. Bush from That's My Bush. Logan's the number one seed. In the 4-5 matchup, Billy Bob Thornton's unnamed president from Love Actually defeated Kevin Pollak in Deterrence. Meryl Streep from Don't Look Up upset Kevin Spacey from House of Cards. Richard Nixon's Head prevailed over Travolta in Primary Colors. So in the second round in that bracket, we've got Charles Logan from 24 against Billy Bob Thornton in Love Actually. I think Billy Bob Thornton could go deep. I think Love Actually is a movie that has a lot of social media legs. And then in the bottom half of that bracket, Meryl Streep from Don't Look Up will be up against Richard Nixon's Head. So then in the disaster president, the one seed, Bill Pullman, easily defeated Kiefer Sutherland from Designated Survivor. In the 4-5, Jamie Foxx shut out Aaron Eckhart in the White House Down, Olympus Has Fallen super match. That really warms my heart. I'm a huge White House Down fan. Over in the 3-6, Morgan Freeman from Deep Impact defeated Henry Fonda in Failsafe. Fun fact, Morgan Freeman is Aaron Eckhart's vice president in The Has Fallen, so there's a little bit of a Pyrrhic victory there. That's not what Pyrrhic victory means. A little consolation prize. And then in the 2-7, Harrison Ford from Air Force One defeated Danny Glover in 2012. So our 1-4 will be Bill Pullman versus Jamie Foxx. Those are both great movies directed by Roland Emmerich. I'm personally going to be pretty torn. And then the 3-2, Morgan Freeman in Deep Impact against Harrison Ford in Air Force One. Over on the funny bracket, the 1-8, Terry Crews from Idiocracy easily defeated Jeff Bridges in The Contender. Jack Nicholson really surprised me from Mars Attacks, really trounced Chris Rock in Head of State, one of the most lopsided matches. Peter Sellers from Doctor Strangelove in the 3-6, who was the 3 seed, beat Alan Alda from Canadian Bacon. And then in the 2-7, Selena Meyer from Veep defeated Michael Keaton in First Daughter. So in the funny bracket, voting this week, Terry Crews versus Jack Nicholson and Peter Sellers versus Julia Louis-Dreyfus's Selena Meyer. In our final bracket, the Hopium corner, the 1-8, Jed Bartlett could win the whole thing. Defeated Cherry Jones's 24 character. And then also in 24, in the 4-5, Dennis Haysbert's David Palmer beat Fitz in what that's a surprise to me. And then in the 2-7, Michael Douglas trounced James Earl Jones in The Man, Michael Douglas in The American President. So number 2 seed, Michael Douglas moves on. And then the other one that tore my heart up, Kevin Kline's Dave defeated Gina Davis in Commander-in-Chief. So the 1-4 there, Jed Bartlett will go up against Dennis Haysbert, 2 iconic TV presidents. One privatized Social Security. The other one, a lot went wrong during his term, and he chose not to seek re-election. And then in the 2-3, Michael Douglas in The American President against Kevin Kline in Dave. So how do you vote? You can go to Twitter at Dr. Digipol, DRDIGIPOL. Our friend Alan Rosenblatt is hosting it there. And then on Instagram, we'll have it up in the stories at Progress America. So vote. We'll have another update next week, and we'll find out who the best fictional president is.
I'm so sad that Tony Goldwyn, aka President Fitzgerald Grant III from Scandal, is out this early. I really thought we were going to take it all the way, so I'm pretty bummed to hear this.
He had a tough draw. Where you fall in the bracket really matters. I think there are a lot of people that Fitz would have defeated, but David Palmer.
Now all my money's
Yeah.
on Meryl Streep. We got to take it all the way. So please vote.
Mm, I think
So
Meryl's going out in the next round.
you do? You think Meryl's gonna go out? Or you think
Yeah, Meryl against Richard Nixon's head. He's
okay,
got
that's
a
a tough
giant
one.
robot body.
So
And I think we do let bots vote on Twitter.
when we were planning the March Madness brackets, we went through and we were just like, who saw what movies, all that good stuff. And so I saw Meryl Streep's name and I messaged Tyler. I was like, Tyler, did you also just put your name for Meryl Streep because she's Meryl Streep? And Tyler's like, no, I actually really like that movie. And I was like, oh yeah, me too. Like I've totally seen that. Since then, I've looked it up, haven't watched yet, but does look like a great movie. And I was like, oh yeah, I've heard good things about that. But of course, Meryl Streep is great. I feel like her Anna Wintour character in Devil Wears Prada would have also made a great president. But maybe that's just like my personal fantasy. That would have been my winner of March Madness. But I think with that, you all have to go vote because we talk about democracy, we talk about politics on this channel. So if you don't vote, how are we practicing what we stand for? Hello. So go vote on our social media. We'll link those in the description of this episode. And other than that, thank you so much for watching this. Make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, tell your friends. Go sing it in the streets that you love Progress America Unfiltered. And we will see you next week for our next episode. And we are so excited for you to join us. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye.